We could get some more opinions and get,
Mark, you ready?
get
Yes,
back
let me
though.
just do one quick thing first, and then I'll put my phone down. I'll shut it off.
Please. I just have one item this evening. I'd like to call for a public hearing on September 14th, 2021 to waive section 11-15.1 to serve alcohol on city property from Friends of Capron Park Zoo for the Night at the Zoo event. The function is on October 2nd, 2021.
Second.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions? This is for the Night at the Zoo event.
I don't.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And that's all I have this evening. I'd like to call for an adjournment at 6:46.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 6:46. Thank you. Do you want my scribbles or no?
Municipal Council to order at 7 p.m. Mr. Withers, would you kindly do a roll call attendance?
Mr. Blair.
Here.
Ms. DeSimone.
Here.
Mr. Conti.
Yes, I'm here.
Mr. Waterman.
Here.
Vice President Jackson.
Here.
Mr. Lucio.
Here.
Mr. Cobus. Here. Ms. Dolan.
Here.
Ms. Reynolds.
Here.
Ms. Holmes.
Here.
President Cooper.
Here.
All are present.
Thank you. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. We're going to take things slightly out of order this evening, and Councilor DeSimone will, once we do the vote, I'll recognize her first to do the resolution for September 11th. So with that said, any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote is required, and we'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Delisio.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
President Cooper.
Yes.
And did I miss somebody again?
Yes. I don't think you called me.
What did I miss?
Me.
Oh, Mr. Cobus.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. We are operating under suspended rules, and with that, I will recognize Councilor DeSimone.
Thank you, President Cooper.
Thank you.
It is my honor to read the following. A resolution of the Attleboro Municipal Council commemorating the 20th anniversary of the September 11, 2001 terrorist attack on the United States, and calling upon Attleboro residents to participate in the annual National Day of Service and Remembrance to honor those lives lost and forever changed. Whereas 20 years ago, on September 11, 2001, the United States endured a violent terrorist attack leading to the tragic deaths and injuries of thousands of innocent United States citizens and other citizens from more than 90 different nations and territories. And whereas among those killed were Attleboro resident Lynn C. Goodchild and her boyfriend Sean Nasony of Pawtucket, both 25 years old and full of promise. And whereas in response to the attacks in New York City, Washington, D.C., and Shanksville, Pennsylvania, members of the Attleboro Police and Fire Departments joined thousands of first responders, military personnel, recovery workers, and volunteers who rose to service in a heroic effort to save lives and to serve and support search and recovery efforts. And whereas in answering the call of duty to prevent further terrorist attacks and defend the security of the United States, hundreds of thousands of brave men and women in the armed forces served and continue to serve our country today. And whereas in 2009, Congress officially designated September 11th as a National Day of Service and Remembrance to honor the people killed or injured in the attacks of September 11, 2001, to recognize and honor our first responders and all who assisted or supported the rescue and recovery effort, to pay tribute to our armed forces, and to honor all of the people who voluntarily aided in need in the aftermath of the attacks. And whereas on September 11, 2021, and on the days leading up to and following this day, citizens of Attleboro have an opportunity to remember the lives of those lost or injured, pay tribute to those who rose in service, and honor those who continue to serve our country today, including active duty and reserve soldiers and their families, veterans, first responders, and civilian volunteers. And whereas National Day of Service and Remembrance activities are being organized across the city by a variety of nonprofits, faith-based and community groups, public agencies, educational institutions, private businesses, and other organizations in the community. Now, therefore be it resolved, as we commemorate the 20th anniversary of the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks, the Attleboro Municipal Council calls upon the residents of Attleboro to join together on this day and throughout the year in the spirit of patriotism and unity to honor the victims and heroes through participation in National Day of Service and Remembrance ceremonies and events.
Thank you, Councilor DeSimone. I know that I believe that Ben Quell is was planning to join, and the Chiefs were also invited. So unfortunately, I don't have my computer, so I can't see who's on, but if Ben is on, if he wanted to say a few words, we would welcome that. Oh, ta-da! Didn't recognize you in there.
Am I able to take this off?
You can, yes. You stay 6 feet away.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
You can? Okay, I'm sorry. For those in attendance, my name is Ben Quell. I serve as the Veterans Agent for the City of Attleboro. I myself am a veteran of the war in Iraq, and I was asked to come here on this momentous occasion to speak on behalf of the military and the veterans. It is, needless to say, it's been a very long journey for members of the military. 9/11 actually put me back in the military. I hadn't worn a uniform in 5 years, and suddenly I received a Western Union telegram in the mail in 2004 welcoming me back into the military. 30 days later, I was in Baghdad. So just to really highlight, what it is I do here, I serve the city in any way necessary to help veterans. And these are veterans of all different war campaigns. There's just not a lot of World War II individuals left. So the majority of my time is spent trying to help elderly veterans. I believe we call them baby boomers, but they are in fact those brave souls that served our country in Vietnam. The toll that war took on our veterans is still being felt today. Every month I'm doing new claims for deadly diseases caused by the use of Agent Orange, to include cancer, Parkinson's. But more and more now I'm going to start seeing a lot of veterans post 9/11. These are individuals who have currently served and have served in the past. And these wounds that they are suffering from are both physical and mental. We call it the war on terror. It actually, since 2001, 9/11, there's been 6 major campaigns. The first one was called Enduring Freedom. It started October 7, 2001, and lasted officially until the last day of December 2014. This was a joint effort by the United States, the UK, and Afghans, and its main objective was to fight terrorism where we could find it, primarily in the Horn of Africa and the Trans-Sahara. After that, we entered into Operation Iraqi Freedom, which officially began in March of 2003 and lasted about 7 years until the last day of August 2010, and that was again a U.S.-led coalition. It was to put down the vicious dictator Saddam Hussein and to search for what was believed to be weapons of mass destruction under his control. At the conclusion of that campaign, we started what was called Operation New Dawn, which began the first day of September in 2010 and lasted till the middle of December 2011. And those combat operations were primarily in Iraq, and that was the rebuilding process, as we called it, of trying to reestablish an Iraqi government, military, and just a way of life for those people. Later, we then entered into Operation Odyssey Dawn, which was between 2011 it was simply a 7-month operation, mostly in Libya, which didn't really get as much attention, but still had its casualties. Afghanistan continued for quite some time, as did operations in Syria, and most of this was towards operations to put down what was known at the time as the Islamic State, primarily in Iraq and Syria, and that lasted from the middle of October 2014. It encompassed about 60 different countries working together to try to put down what later became known as ISIS. Most recently, we have seen the end of the last operation, which is Operation Freedom's Sentinel. That officially began the first day of January in 2015 and just ended officially about a month ago. All in all, it's really tough to put all the numbers together. But those 6 operations took the lives by direct enemy fire of 7,066 U.S. men and women in uniform. There were members of the military became casualties right away on 9/11. We do remember Flight 77 slamming into the Pentagon. In addition to 70 civilian employees that were immediately killed, 33 sailors and 22 Army soldiers were killed when that plane crashed into the Pentagon. In addition to the toll it takes on the body when enemy fire is delivered upon a soldier. We also, we've seen the amputees. We know that they come home and they have these lifelong injuries, but we also hear a lot about mental illness as well. And I deal with that a lot in my job here for the city, both with current and veterans from other campaigns, including Vietnam. In campaigns past, they used to have nicknames for it, like shell shock. Now we come to understand it as a mental illness, and it's known as post-traumatic stress disorder. It's real. I've experienced it myself. I don't feel that the same me came back from combat as left. And it certainly has continued to take its toll on our veterans. Since 2001, over 114,000 veterans have taken their own life. It also has put tremendous strain on families. As deployments increase, so did divorces. It's also put great strain on female members of the military, which we haven't seen in campaigns past. Officially, and I think it was around March of 2013, all restrictions for females serving in combat branches was lifted. So now you have females serving in every combat variety you can think of, including the infantry. That also means that casualties in females have gone up. Over 175 females have been killed by direct enemy fire. 6 of them were pregnant at the time of their passing. We have recently seen, we've all witnessed the horror that has recently taken this country. About 3 weeks ago, when we lost 13 members, 12 Marines and 1 Navy corpsman, 2 of which were females. We certainly see the pictures of Sergeant Nicole D. of Sacramento, California, holding that small infant. 4 days later, she was killed, but even closer to home, Sergeant Johanny Rosario of Lawrence, Massachusetts, was also a part of the fatalities from that suicide bomber. At this point, it looks like we are officially no longer carrying on a campaign in the nation of Afghanistan. It has now been taken over by the Taliban. Just to give an understanding of that campaign, since it's the one that lasted longest, if we add in the 13 casualties that have recently taken our military, that leads a total of 2,448 lives lost fighting in Afghanistan. Including 3,846 U.S. contractors were killed as well. 20,666 casualties, wounded but not killed. There were over 50 nations that contributed to the campaign in Afghanistan. Of those nations, 1,140 coalition troops were also killed in Afghanistan. And it's tough to put a number on it, but roughly 69 to 70,000 Afghan military personnel have also been killed fighting in this campaign. So this really is quite a historic day coming up. I know I've talked to a lot of Afghan veterans. I myself did not serve there, but we certainly have a lot of veterans here in Attleboro who did serve in Afghanistan. It wasn't just the duration of time, I think, that made this unique, but the amount of deployments. It's not unusual to find veterans that did 6, 7, 8 different deployments, either to Iraq, Afghanistan, which is very unusual. Not to mention the massive amount of National Guard and reservists that were also activated under Title X to serve in both those major campaigns is something that's historic as well. So I certainly hope that this November 11th, people take homage to the amount of sacrifice that the men and women in uniform gave to this country again and again, and the folks here in the city of Attleboro hopefully are well aware of that. I'd just like to say that on the 18th of this month, we are going to be holding a recognition, like a visual, Capron Park, starting at 6 o'clock. Please, hopeful folks can come out and participate. At this point, I'll take any questions from the council if you have any.
Thanks, Ben. Any questions for Ben? Councilor DeSimone, and then Dolan, did I see your hand?
No.
Ben, first of all, thank you for your service, and thank you for coming down, making your comments, and reminding us of, more of the costs and the consequences of September 11th. The event on the 18th, that's the POW MAA and 9/11
That's
event?
correct.
Okay. And it's open to everybody?
It was open, yeah. We're going to have a number of different speakers. I believe there may be some members here of this council that will be there and some other elected officials. But it's just, we just want to make sure that this city is one of the most patriotic places I've ever been to and worked in. And we're just going to make sure this day doesn't go by without us recognizing the sacrifices that have been made.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
President Cooper.
Thank you. Any additional questions, comments for Ben? Anybody on the Zoom? Is the fire chief or the police chief, did they, either one of them join? I didn't, again, I can't see it.
Yeah, this is Chief LaChance. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
I can, thank you, chief.
Hey, I apologize for my, I'm not too technologically advanced with the Zoom, so I just want to start by saying thank you to all the veterans for their service. I think especially today with everything that's going on, it's an opportunity for all of us to, put aside our differences and focus on the things that we all share in common. And I think that when we talk about terrorism, when we talk about veterans and everything that they've done for all of us in our lives, I think it's really important that we all kind of focus on that. So thank you for all of that and for your service. To the council, thank you for recognizing September 11th. As we all know, it's been 20 years now. It's hard to believe that it's been 20 years. Certainly seems like we've had some times where we kind of not forget about it, but it's not at the forefront of our thoughts. And then obviously now with what's happened just recently, we're all kind of giving us a little bit more thought than normal. Plus it's the 20th year anniversary. So Attleboro, as you know, we did have an Attleboro resident, the child, lost a family member. So it does kind of resonate with the city of Attleboro more than some of the local communities. I think that we've done a pretty good job in the city of always remembering it. I do think this resolution is a good idea. It's a good step to kind of encourage us all to remember it, because it does get difficult sometimes. We all get busy, and I think resolutions like this are an important step to cause us all to take a step back in our busy lives and just kind of, think about everything that we're dealing with, be grateful for what we have. As a first responder, we see things a little bit differently, not quite like the military, but in some ways we're very similar. I have several members of the department that are veterans, many that are active in the reserves right now, so we routinely have people that are either deployed or ready to deploy. We certainly support that. But now as we're getting closer to September 11th again, and we start to refocus our thoughts on everything that stands for, it would be definitely, I think, remiss if I didn't just mention, the loss of life was 354 uniformed firefighters. So we from the fire service, it's one of those days that we don't ever forget. Everybody, when they sign up for the job, knows that that's a possibility. It's something we certainly hope we never have to do. But, I'm very proud of all of the men and women of the fire department. I'm certain that every single one of them would certainly be more than willing to step in and do the same thing that so many members of the fire service and police service did 20 years ago. We had several members of the Attleboro Fire Department that responded down to New York on that day and during that time period. So we're all dealing with that regularly. So again, just want to thank the council for the support going forward. We will be doing a small ceremony at the fire station on September 11th, like we do each year. Obviously, it's different now because we have to deal with social distancing, and some of them maybe by Zoom, be a bit more complicated. But I really do want to thank the council for taking the steps to encourage all of the residents to really, really remember this day. So thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Is Chief Hegney on the Zoom?
There's none.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions or comments for Ben? Councilor Waterman.
I really appreciated your mentioning the mental toll that combat takes. And as emotional as it makes me feel, the families of people, of soldiers that took their own lives. My wife's family was affected that way, and we need to remember those folks too, as though they were in combat.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Ben, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks. And Councilor DeSimone, do you want to just one more time mention?
we might?
Yeah.
Sure. We invite all the public, as Ben said, to attend the 23rd Annual POW MIA and September 11th Remembrance on September 18th at Cape Ron Park at 6 o'clock, and I believe it's usually followed by a candlelight vigil. It's a very nice event, so it would be awesome if for the 20th anniversary we could get a lot of residents to join the event. So please do.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions? Again, thank you very much. Thanks for your presentation, Councilor DeSimone. And with that, we will move to the continued public hearings this evening.
All right. The next order of business is to continue public hearing regarding the proposed amendments to Chapter 18, Local Wetlands Protection of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this continued public hearing? Anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Before we move to opposition, is there anyone on, are there any other participants on the Zoom call for this hearing, Jim?
None that expressed interest.
Great, thank you. So again, we'll move to those to speak in opposition. Please come to the podium and identify yourself for the record.
Tired having hearing aids, glasses, and a mask. My name is Jim Lewis. I live at 16 Harvey Road in Attleboro. I have a number of different comments I'd like to make about this, and I am in opposition of it, even though I have, I think, a good track record in conservation and environmental matters. I've been involved with the Land Trust almost since its inception. I'm a card-carrying member of the Appalachian Mountain Club, the trustees of reservations. So in 1979, my wife and I bought a 7-acre parcel which fronts 200 feet on Peckham Street, which is the road to the landfill. And we also have access through Harvey Road, hence my address. And as it turns out, my wife and I have had and have no plans of development. However, I'm speaking here to you today in my capacity as a landowner who would be impacted significantly if the council were to increase the 25-foot, it's called a wetland protection zone in the ordinance. And, you know, I call it no disturb or no touch, and those are not really the terms that you see in the ordinance. That's what some of us think is the result of the language of the ordinance. My first comment was that I'm really not familiar with any hard evidence that the council has been given as to why the 25-foot is not working. In other words, again, I haven't really paid close attention to your meetings, but have you had anybody come in here and demonstrate to you that the wetlands are being harmed even though there's a 25-foot wetlands protection zone? So to me, if you can't make that finding, then you should vote against this. Just on the what evidence, or it's not evidence, but what testimony and evidence, I guess it is evidence, what showing have you seen? It's not really a law case, you know, so I don't want to make it into that. But, you know, because you're peeling back property rights of people. So when the council voted 20 years ago to establish the 25-foot wetlands protection zone, that changed the rights of people that own property. And you say, well, how does that change? Well, number one, many of us think it's a no disturb provision. So up until that time, you went to the Conservation Commission, and the Conservation Commission would tell you what you could not do and what you could do, and you'd get an order of conditions. So with the 25-foot, it changed the process. And what I mean by that is, if you want to do something within the wetland protection zone, which right now is 25 feet, you have to file under the Attleboro Wetlands Protection Ordinance. You're still going to be under the state law, so you're going to actually have two sets of jurisdiction here. The process changes, though, if you don't like what you get. Because under the, prior to the 25-foot wetlands protection zone, and also if you're in the other 75 feet, if you don't like what you get, you write a letter, you enclose some evidence, and you send it off to DEP. No lawyers, not a lot of waiting time, and you get an answer back, yes or no. So it's a very simple process. Under the Attleboro Wetlands Ordinance, if you, in that 25 feet, or in what's in front of you, that 75 feet, you've got to appeal to Superior Court. Now, number one, you got to hire a lawyer. You've got to have a professional, like the person probably helped you with your permit. And you're in front of a Superior Court judge that probably has never heard one of these cases before. Also, all the findings, this is what we have right now. This is our Wetlands Protection Ordinance and our rules and regulations. And if you read this, there's a lot of statements in here that may or may not be true, but for a Superior Court judge, they are true. And I don't want to hold you guys up, but there are some statements I might like to read to you that would just explain some of the justification for regulation that I don't think you're necessarily prepared to make that vote in favor of that, because I don't think you've been shown enough. So anyway, that's my first thing is no scientific evidence. You know, our Concom does a great job. I don't think they need the 75 foot. I think we're fine. We've lived with 25 feet for so long. I would just say let's not go there. The second one is, as I recall, initially this was about trees. And so this came in front of you, I guess, over a year ago. And it was a quick effort to stop people from cutting trees. And it didn't go anywhere for a couple of reasons. Number one, that's not the way you stop people from cutting trees, I suspect. And second of all, there was nothing built into the ordinance that would allow somebody that already was in the 25 foot, or the 75 foot in this case, like their backyard bocce ball pit or whatever it was, they couldn't do anything to that. So this new ordinance that is proposed to you will allow for people to go into the 75 foot if in fact you need to do that in order to take care of your driveway, take care of your septic system, do all of those sorts of things. But what it doesn't do is someone like myself, I'm going to have 75 feet of my land rather than 25 feet. That's essentially, my rights to use it have been significantly reduced. Then one of the topics you've probably heard is about water quality. And where I live, any water that comes off our land is going to go out through Chartley Pond out through Norton, Taunton River, Mount Hope Bay. Attleboro doesn't rely on any of our water in our swamp. I have quite a lot frontage on a swamp, if you will. We have the Clean Waters Act, which if you haven't heard about it yet, you will, because it's unfunded federal mandates on detention ponds and the various kinds of stormwater conveyances. We have the Massachusetts Rivers Act, which prohibits anything going on within 200 feet of a river. We have the Attleboro Water Resource Protection District Overlay Zone. So we protect our water very well, and our water comes from North Attleboro and Mansfield and up that neck of the woods. So I don't see how whatever's going on my property is going to impact Attleboro's water quality in any way. It also, I've heard that there's provisions, and there are, for waivers, hardship, things like that. I'm unaware of much that's happened with that. Oh yeah. So what's the score on our local communities that border on Attleboro? So who has a wetlands protection ordinance? Seacon. Now, in name only, Rehoboth has one, but theirs is just to tell you how much you have to pay in order to file with the Conservation Commission. No substantive. What community has a no disturb or a wetlands protection zone? Seacon, 25 feet, recently enacted. I'm told North Attleboro Conservation Commission has a informal, not in writing, sort of stay out of the first 25 feet. And then when I say you, I don't know, maybe Pete, but when the council passed the original wetlands protection ordinance, there was this little thing in there about vernal pools. And not only do I have a bunch of swamp as an abutter, I also have a vernal pool on my property. And so instead of calling the vernal pool the resource, what the ordinance says is the resource is the vernal pool plus 100 feet all around the vernal pool. That's considered the protected resource. So in my case, I go off the edge of the vernal pool 100 feet, then I add the 25 feet no touch, so now I'm at 125 feet, and if we add another 50 feet to that, that's 175 feet. Now go back and do pi r square, and you'll figure out what the area of that is. But for me, it's between the 75 foot and the vernal pool. We will probably lose an acre and a half to 2 acres of highland, of dry land, of good land. So I just wanted to read. I can see you guys glazing over now. So here is the in your amendment. Lands within 75 feet of resource areas protected by this ordinance are presumed important to the protection of these resources because activities undertaken in close proximity to resource areas have a high likelihood of adverse impact upon the wetland or other resource, either immediately as a consequence of construction or over time as a consequence of daily operation or exercise of the activities. Now, if that's the case, why doesn't DEP have any no-touch zones? Why do they not have any wetlands protection zone? They don't. So my land's about a mile away from Norton and a mile away from Rehoboth. I wouldn't have any of this. I'd still have to go to the Conservation Commission, and I'd still have to make sure that I didn't impact the wetlands, but I wouldn't have to have this. So I'm asking you, and first of all, I thank you. I know you've been on this for a long time, and I do thank you for all of it. But I'm asking you to, let's vote this down. If the proponents want to start over and come up with some solid evidence to justify it, then I would ask you to entertain that, but that's it for me.
Thank you.
Richard.
I see you, Rick. Council Conti has some questions.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
Jim, can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So, Jim, thank you for coming tonight, because I have a lot of respect for you and what you said. But one thing you said really, really bothered me deeply. And it was when you were holding up the ordinance, the wetlands ordinance, and you said that the content of it may or may not be true, but a judge would look at it as all true. Could you just elaborate on that for me so I can get a better understanding of your point?
Yeah, so basically in litigation, this would be considered more of an administrative kind of appeal rather than an appeal, I'm just trying to think of a zoning case. Zoning cases, typically, you get a de novo hearing. The court finds the facts, listens to the facts all over again. They find the facts and apply the law. That's typically what an appeal would be. On this case, you're limited. In other words, that it is not open to discussion whether or not lands within 75 feet of resource area is protected by this ordinance. That language that I read, that's not open for discussion. That is the law as far as that judge is concerned. You can't question that. That's what I meant.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Mr. President.
Welcome. Any additional questions for Council Kobus?
Hi, Jim. Thank you. And thank you for also mentioning, and I greatly respect mentioning that you're part of the AMC as a member or trustee, or?
No, the AMC, I give them my $100 a year, and I get a little sticker.
In the
trustees, I give them $100 a year, and I don't even get a sticker anymore.
Fair enough.
But I feel strongly about both of them. In Massachusetts, probably the closest one is the place in Easton, Borderland State Park. That's run by the trustees of reservations. They're all over the place.
Fair enough. And respect that. My question is, you talked about Seekonk enacting the 25 feet. Have you heard anything from them as far as the impact to assessments? Did they reduce assessments, or have people been filing for abatements? Have you heard anything along those lines?
As far as I know, it's new. I failed to mention something. On their website, the Conservation Commission, it says 25 feet, I don't know what they call it, no buildings within 50 feet.
Okay.
Well, there's, at least they thought about that.
I can call and find out. But
my experience with our assessor's office is that it's going nowhere.
Perfect.
But and I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
I was just curious if you had heard anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions for Mr. Lewis? Jim, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition?
Am I allowed to take this off?
Yes, you are, sir.
Hi, my name's Jack Lank. I live at 18 Lindsay Farm Lane, but I'm also here as the president of the United Regional Chamber of Commerce. I was sent something that I was asked to make sure get put into the record, so I'm going to read the statement. To the Honorable Attleboro City Councilors, not sure if your property will be affected under this new proposed ordinance, but I'm sure it will cause hardship on many, many residents of Attleboro who bought their property under the existing laws. A 100-foot DEP zone covers all that's needed right now. We don't have to add anything else. Nick and Gary told us we're all grandfathered, and you'll already have to notify Concom if you're going to do anything. Nothing has changed. But that's not true. One could appeal to the DEP under the existing ordinance. The major hardship is, under this proposed change, you can't do that. So the difference is if you're doing the work in the new 25 to 70-foot proposed area, you will now need engineering plans, cost of between $4,500 and $10,000. Add to that a set of plans from the botanist, $3,500 to $7,000. A long way away from the Concom fee of $150 that's required now. Nick says he probably would okay for existing homeowners if a new deck were to protrude into that no disturb zone. Well, probably. On top of this, you're considering eliminating the option to go to DEP for an appeal if needed. This would create a severe hardship on existing homeowners, and you'd have to file an appeal with the Superior Court, wait 1 to 3 years to get your court date, and spend another $3,000 to $10,000 on legal services. Nick also said he would probably just okay the project for existing buildings, and so would the COMCOM commissioners. Should not change anything. You would all be grandfathered, is what people were told. If it's true, why change the ordinance? No existing property is grandfathered once you make any change failing within the new proposed ordinance. And what happens if we get a new CONCOM person? How does that change? Then the other questions that I have is, how much is it going to cost the city to reappraise some of this property? Or for all the files, the abatement filing that's going to get done? Who's going to pay for all that?
Any questions for Councilor DeSimone?
Just a point of order. If Mr. Lank read a statement of another, was that of another person, Jack, or your statement? I'm not.
Another person.
Do we need to know who that person is if he was reading their words into the record, or no? I'm just not clear.
It's Greg Dorrance. I don't have any proof. We're not hiding anything.
Perfect. Nope.
Yeah.
I'm not, I did.
He's already
Thank you.
spoke. He's already spoken for us.
Right. Yeah, thank you, Jack.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Richard, did you have a question? Jack, don't go away. Richard,
Now I can let it go.
are you sure?
Okay.
Thank you. Any additional to speak in opposition? Anyone else here to speak in opposition?
Good evening, councilors. My name is Bob Catanacci. I'm from Oak Hill Ave in Attleboro. I've been a resident of Attleboro for 59 years and a builder for over 36 years in Attleboro. As long as I can remember, and I know Mr. Lewis tonight told me, I mentioned that it was 20 years ago. As long as I can remember, there's been a 25-foot no disturb bordering the wetlands. My personal experience as a builder and also as a homeowner and a landowner in Attleboro is that these restrictions have worked fine in Attleboro. And I have not seen any major disturbances or destructions of wetlands over the several decades. As such, I'm not in favor of a 75-foot no disturb zone. Currently, the Conservation Commission regulates the construction of homes, pools, sheds, additions, etc., within 100 foot of wetlands with a 25-foot no disturb, so the wetlands are not altered or destroyed. I get that. With the implementation of a 75-foot no disturb zone within the 100-foot buffer, however, it appears to me the Conservation Commission would go from regulating the buildable 75-foot portion of that 100-foot to policing an unbuildable 75-foot portion of the 100-foot buffer, regulating only 25-foot strip of land, which is the difference from the 100-foot to the 75 no disturb. In my opinion, this gives the Conservation Commission and the constituents of the city a lot less flexibility in developing this land and developing land towards the wetlands. Also, this ordinance is proposing a hard 75-foot no disturb zone, since wetlands exist in many forms and types, some being high priority, some being lesser priority, and some being minimal priority. And since the effects of new and existing construction of these wetlands vary drastically, mainly based on the type of land, type of soil, slopes, the one-size-fit-all hard-line approach to a 75-foot no disturb zone doesn't appear to me to be a very thoughtful way of handling the wetland situation. Nor I don't think does it do justice to the constituents of the city and their properties. After reviewing much of the science, it appears to me, my personal observation, most disturbances experienced within wetland buffer zones stem from the fact that the bordering inhabitants, the people who live next to the wetland zones, do not obey the bordering rules. I've read a lot of commentary on the website, and they suggest that rather than increasing the no disturb zone to 75 feet, drastically affecting residents in real estate, and in this case in Attleboro, it would be prudent to increase the enforcement of the current 25-foot no disturb zone. In my opinion, if you have a 25-foot no disturb zone and no one is supposed to be disturbing it, how can the wetlands be disturbed? It would ensure that those that are not obeying the rules adhere more closely to the rules, while not penalizing those who are adhering to the rules now by encumbering them with further regulation and diminishing the usefulness of their land. The review of wetland resource area buffer zone distances, that was a study prepared in February 2013, town of Tewksbury, strongly suggests that a more effective conservation enforcement and education would greatly enhance the effectiveness of a 25-foot no disturb zone. That's in their report. I propose this education would come from the city, from the conservation agent, and also from the builders. Why not? Also, I feel strong that these inhabitants bordering these wetlands or contain portions of wetlands do not respect the 25-foot no disturb zone, will also not respect the 75-foot disturb zone. If they're not obeying the 25-foot now, I don't think that they would obey the 75. As a matter of fact, I would think that they would probably be more flagrant in their disregard for it. And many of the inhabitants of the properties bordering these wetlands who do respect them now, who do respect the 25-foot no disturb zone, I expect will still be able, they'll expect to still be able to use their land that falls within the newly restricted areas because they've been legally doing so for years, ever since they've purchased their property, similar to Mr. Lewis. When you purchase a property for 79 years and you have the benefit of using that land and then having it taken away from you, it's kind of a hard pill to swallow. I've read research suggesting that no disturb zones of 25 feet will remove about 50% of the pollutants versus a 100-foot no disturb zone, which will remove about 70% of the pollutants. Therefore, a 75-foot no disturb zone, using the science that's available, and it's very limited, one would assume that that would be between 50 and 70. Somewhere in that area, nobody knows. Therefore, a 75-foot no disturb zone would clearly remove less than 70%. The small difference in pollutant removal from the 25-foot to the 75-foot no disturb zone, in my opinion, highly justifies the restrictions residents would use on their land or the money that would have spent on this being updated on the ordinance. When I speak about cost, I refer to the obvious economic impact that proposed ordinance would have on the community as a whole. Historically, communities that have tightened these wetland regulations have experienced reduced tax bases of affected properties, disgruntled constituents, and even lawsuits, which could cost potentially the Treasury hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, in defense, regardless of whether they are arguable law suits or not. A major tax base reduction could potentially hurt the city economically as well. In recent history, I read about a woman who sued the town of Tewksbury, Massachusetts for taking her land via wetland regulations. She won the lawsuit. And though the decision was overturned on an appeal due to technicalities, I've read that the case will probably go before the Supreme Court, which will determine the legality and set a precedent for this type of potential land taking. I personally have been hearing such aggrieved sentiments throughout the residents of this city regarding this proposed new wetlands regulations and a commitment to possible pursuit of legal relief if this proposal passes. And as a local taxpayer, that potential cost of lawsuits and property devaluation to the city concerns me greatly, as I think it should all of us. Lastly, I'm also very concerned with the effect of this ordinance, if approved, that would have on existing project applications in the city. This is more of my personal situation now. I have several projects in the development. One's waiting planning board approval, and the other two are almost fully engineered with the plans and applications being finalized and submitted within the next few weeks to a month. All of these applications will require conservation NOI applications. I've been told by the authorities, by Nick and by Gary, that my applications would be grandfathered under the 25-foot no-disturb protection until January, assuming applications for said projects were submitted prior to the council's approval. But should the council approve the proposed ordinance before my applications are submitted, quite possibly even tonight, the unsubmitted plans, which I have invested tens of thousands of dollars in, would be rendered impractical to proceed with. At very least, should the 75-foot no disturb be approved, I feel provisions must be made to protect city residents and investors, such as myself, who have invested much time and money into projects and into the city, and will continue to do so in the future. I suggest that if accepted and if approved, an amnesty or grandfathering of all projects submitted from now until January to allow all projects currently underway to be properly submitted. Once submitted, I feel all submissions should be grandfathered until approval. Just to be clear, all new NOI submissions to be submitted from now till January should be allowed using the grandfathered rights under the current regulations until submissions are approved. That's all I have there, and I just brought a little artwork with me just to kind of show you. This is a typical, very small, I have handouts if anybody wants them as well. Very small sketch. What this sketch really shows is a 16,000 square foot buildable lot in Attleboro. I don't know if these guys can see it.
I don't think Richard can see
I
it.
apologize for how can I make them.
Richard, we'll get you copies.
Apologize. This is a 16,000 square foot lot, 100-foot frontage, 160-foot depth. Very typical. I've built in many of these myself. It's showing a typical septic system layout, 20 foot off the road, 20 foot off the house, DEP regulations. So this is kind of etched in stone. A typical house, that would be probably 1,900 square foot. And hypothetically speaking, I put the wetlands at the very end, just over the lot, so that this lot currently has no wetlands on it, none. And yet, with a 75-foot no disturb zone, this lot becomes unbuildable. With a 50-foot no disturb zone, this lot becomes unbuildable. Yet with the 25-foot that we have in place now, this is, as it is now and as it has been for 20 years, or even longer than that, this is a buildable lot in Attleboro. I think these regulations are excessive. I think they go into more of building prohibitiveness and zoning prohibitiveness than it does wetlands protection. And
Bob, I just have Richard, before
Yes,
you, I'll recognize you in 1 second, Councilor Conti, but Bob, you mentioned a couple of existing projects and then some projects that are sort of in the pipeline, so
Yes.
current and pipeline projects. Did you tonight bring anything that would show that scenario on your reality that exists today?
I did not, Mr. President. My artwork was just a hypothetical.
Could you send that to the council admin or drop copies off so we could give that to all councilors so that we could
Absolutely.
see what sort of in your reality that exists with what you're doing currently and in the pipeline, you could show these lots would be potentially affected by 50 and these, or 75, however you want to show it.
Absolutely.
I think would be helpful from a visual perspective for us to
put it
see.
in perspective, so we have a 19-lot subdivision, which is actually at the approval stage now with the planning board, and 6 of those lots would be adversely affected by this regulation. As a matter of fact, 6 of those lots would become non-buildable. if the 75-foot went into, what do you call it? Got approved before I could file my NOI. And I can't file my NOI on the individual lots until the subdivision is approved as a whole, because the subdivision itself didn't go before conservation.
Right, thank you. Any additional questions from Mr. Cavanaghi? I know Councilor Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for that last question. That was the first one that I wanted to ask. Mr. Cavanaghi, thank you for coming tonight. You have prepared remarks, and the President is going to ask you to leave those remarks with the administrative assistant to the council so the councils can have access to them. And before you do that, Mr. Cavanaghi, there was one section that you were quoting a study, and I'm not sure that you referred to where you got that information. So before you turn in your paperwork to Virginia Stewart, would you please go through it? And in each case where you're citing material, particularly the 50-foot, 70-foot, and 100-foot, write down where that source is so that we can find that as well. I'd really appreciate it.
I absolutely will, Councilor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Conti. Any additional questions for Mr. Cavanaghi? Thank you. Bob, again, just cite those references in your materials when you drop it off to Virginia, and she'll get copies to all of us.
I will.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition? Anyone else here to speak in opposition?
Good evening. My name is Jerry Turcott. I live at 542 Newport Avenue. And I'm in basic opposition of this ordinance as it is set and as it is written. I consider myself an environmentalist. I grew up in the woods in Attleboro here and have been able to enjoy that and have been taught a deep respect of the environment. The property that I have is not buildable as it was described years ago, and so that made it easier that few people wanted to take it, and so it was a lot easier to enjoy. I agree that the city needs to address future building. I lived out of state for a number of years, and coming back to the area, there are areas that I hiked and walked through that I never dreamed that something would be able to be built so close to a stream. You know, that driveways are along the sides of streams and houses are put in the places that they're put. And we do need housing, and I am sensitive to that. But over the long term, it's not sustainable. It's not the thing to do. So I think the city needs to address what it builds, where it builds, you know, our different styles of housing being incorporated so it's not all taking down woodlands and farmlands and putting in a street and a cul-de-sac and all single-family houses. That is not efficient today for housing providing a lot of people, especially considering that we are a corridor. We're no longer a little manufacturing hub. We are now in the Boston, Rhode Island, Boston, Providence corridor that a whole lot of people want to live. And so we need to have housing. Builders can build, but it may not be as it has been for so many years, because we all do live in an environmentally sensitive area. While we may not drink our own water goes to Narragansett Bay and it passes through. Over the last 6 weeks or so, I've had numerous discussions with Nick, the conservation agent, and I don't know, 20 plus years ago, I remember, when Wetlands and this whole concept, came on. I remember talking to a very good conservation agent. I believe he was like 3 or 4 conservations ago, Ed Tanner, And, I got educated. I mean, I was, like I say, I was brought up understanding and respecting, streams and all that's there. But, there are different views. And so I think the first step for the city is to address the building needs and changing zoning, this single-family only zoning. We need to have, there's a lot of places that people have wanted to split the house, and they can't, or in-law apartments have been made difficult for folks. So number one is addressing land use and building use. And then the other step is education. I get more information, not this last year with COVID, but, requesting money for fireworks than I have on wetlands. And frankly, while, I respect everybody and everybody's busy, this is a great brochure, general brochure, and this would be state of the time if it was in 1970. It defines wetlands, and it does a good job as a basic piece, but people don't understand, and some people don't care, that what they put on their lawns is draining into the brooks, and it's a toxic problem. And I wish we could we can't ban everything, but at Home Depot, and maybe get North Attleboro on board, where Lowe's, and if you bought this, weed and feed, you would get a warning like you used to on the cigarettes, saying it's toxic for the environment. I think people need to be brought along that, just like we are now being educated about our trash and our recyclables, and people ought to be getting information from the city regularly, in our utility bills and things. Not all the same thing, all different messages, but basically making everybody a steward of the environment like we are supposed to be. It wasn't that long ago, it was unheard of to bring your own trash bag, your own shopping bag into the supermarket. Now it's pretty much a lot of stores, it's encouraged, and we all realize that, reuse, recycle is the way to go. I'm not a builder and I'm not affected, but as a homeowner, over the past 80 years, we have paid countless thousands of dollars in taxes to enjoy the property and to be able to walk through the property and enjoy it, and have kids in the neighborhood using the property to grow up in. And I've been fortunate actually to meet some neighbors who, grew up in the area, and I was away to college, away to stuff, and they were able to enjoy. They didn't know what belonged to or whatever. I abut land trust on actually now 3 sides, and so it's gratifying that people can do that. But now I'm informed that when a tree comes down, I in certain areas, not in all areas, I'm fortunate that I have enough space that I can, for what I need to use, I can garden organically, and I don't have to worry about. But my passive trails and my walking through my property, when a tree comes down, if I want to either move it so I don't have to relocate my path, I need a permit. I need to come in and pay $25, and if I want to go out and trim the poison ivy so that I or someone else is not affected by the poison ivy, this is the quiet enjoyment of our property. I would need to get a permit to make any changes. Or if I want to go around a tree, well, and I'm not even talking about digging out stuff or grading, I'm just talking about making a walking path so that you wouldn't get ticks. And so if you're in that 75-foot border, that's a permittable thing also now. I mean, when I say permittable, I mean I would need to get permission. Well, when you need to get permission to do everything, it's called asking the landlord, you know, and I don't know if the city wants to become the landlord or if the city should become the landlord of property owners who are already paying taxes to have that privilege. So another thing is I'm concerned that the city is going to face litigation and expenses related to this. After the last meeting, I was speaking to a friend who is he does valuations he works with the state projects, and I said, you know, as builders were describing this as basically, it feels like a land taking, and I know it's not technically a land taking, but it feels like, he said, well, you know what, there is such a thing as a land, and I'm not sophisticated in any of this, but he said there is land taking by regulation, and so people can, you know, bring action, and it's like, well, I don't want to do it. I mean, I can see where people are going to lose considerable value in their property. And the last thing the city needs is to be tied up with more lawyers and more litigation. It seems like we've had enough of that in our recent past, you know, so I don't know that our tax dollars really need to go into that. So for those reasons, like I say, I mean, I just hope to be able to enjoy peaceful, unregulated use, passive recreation. I mean, I think that's what, you know, Jim was talking about. I don't know that I don't know. I don't know what other people want to do. It isn't like this is going to be, for me, something I can sell and make some money on in the future. It's just a matter of, as I said, my address is on Newport Avenue, and there are many a days when I cannot work in my front yard because of the exhaust smells. Never mind the sounds, the sirens, but it's the exhaust, you know, and frankly, if it wasn't for my backyard, I wouldn't have kept the property. But I mean, I think I enjoy my backyard, I enjoy nature. A European term is called a nature bath, you know. Basically, it's just being able to go outside with a cup of coffee and enjoy the birds, and when you're away from the street, it's a different world. You know, other people have to travel 10, 15 minutes, or, you know, and go someplace. I am blessed that I can go 5 minutes out of my back door, and it's an entirely different world. I would like to be able to maintain that without worrying about breaking the law. You know, when you make everybody a lawbreaker for picking up sticks and for trimming something, then you lose the power of the law, you know. And additionally, if kids were to play out in that back, as I and many friends and countless generations did, they would be lawbreakers. You know, we used to collect branches and make a fort, and other kids would try to overrun the fort, you know. Well, guess what? That would be disturbing it, and that would be against this ordinance. And that kind of stuff I asked, and that is the case. So for that reason, just as a common sense thing, I think this, as it is, should be defeated, and things should be reworked. And like I said, I really do believe that we need to address the building, I think, and education on people. I think we can get a lot of what that is being tried to be done with this. It can be done in other better ways, more effective ways. So, thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Turcott? Jerry, I just have one comment.
Sure.
So you may not remember, but I stood in your backyard,
okay,
probably about 18 years ago, with Eddie Tanner,
yep,
talking about the development of the corner of May Street and Route 1. And you were worried at that time about the culvert that went underneath Route 1, across Route 1, and went into that grate. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So.
I don't remember exactly, but I remember.
And look at the corner of May Street today. But thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate it. I think your point about educating the community on other things and what the growth strategy, right, might be around development is an important one for us to consider. So thank you for coming tonight. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time, but thanks for coming. Any additional comments, questions for Mr. Turcott?
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak in opposition? Anyone else here to speak in opposition? Anyone here to speak neither for nor against? Anyone here to speak neither for nor against? Seeing none, Councilor Holmes, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
Thank you. So I am going to.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Through the chair to Councilor Holmes. Councilor Holmes, I'm going to ask you to please hold it open because there are people who spoke tonight that I would like to interview. So if you would please hold that open for me, I would greatly appreciate it.
We can do that, Councilor Conti. And in addition, there was some additional information that I was going to that I requested publicly from Mr. Catenacci that he committed to providing, which we can do that. But given your request to keep this public hearing open, I will honor that request, and we will keep this public hearing open until October 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. So this is, public hearing is continued until October 5th. Moving on to the next public hearing.
Yes, it's a public hearing regarding the request from National Grid and Verizon to install pole 16-50 with an anchor along Commerce Way to provide service for a solar array located at New England Sports Village.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in favor?
I'm the engineer with National Grid.
Great, thank you very much. Would you just identify yourself and your name for the record?
Sure. Al Galvin, design engineer at National Grid, Hopedale office.
Thank you. Al, so if you would give the council just an overview of your this particular one. We'll do each one individually, and I apologize in advance, but that's just the way the process works. So on this particular public hearing, if you just give the council an overview, that would be great.
Sure. This first one, that was the Commerce Way, was it?
That's correct.
Yep.
Yep, so it's mid-span pole they're installing just off of pole 17 to feed across the street to 1365, where the new sports complex is going. And this way, it's the pole lines nice and in line with what's out there on Commerce and as far as going across up along the driveway there. So it's going to transfer it into the existing primary cables that are on Commerce and then tap off into this new complex area.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Galvin?
I do, President Cooper.
Councilor Jackson.
Thank you very much, President Cooper. Mr. Gavin, I know this came in back in June, or excuse me, July 1st, but the things that are going on with the New England Sports Village, with ownership changes and things like that, and there's a lot of things that are going on with Sports Village. Bottom line is, so do you know if things have changed since, like in the last couple of months, since this was proposed?
No. According to the engineer who worked on it, this is just a side tap for a solar project. So there's a solar setup going in off this pole line. So that's, I don't know anything about the sports complex itself. That's just the location, the general location of where it's coming off of. But it's actually for a solar setup.
And so it's not the Sports Village that's involved in this whatsoever?
No, I don't believe so. I think it's strictly just a solar field, a solar, array.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have a question, Mr. Gavin. Is this pole, so I think it's roadway A, B, C, D, coming off of Commerce Way. I think it goes up to D. I think there's 4 of them.
Yeah.
Do you know which roadway this is closest to? Because when you say Commerce Way and New England Sports Village, and then you give me 1365, that doesn't give me enough information to understand where you're coming out of.
Let me see if it says in the work request, Peter. You guys may have more of the paperwork than I would.
Well, we can find the answer to that. We don't need that to hold us up tonight. We can find the answer to that, but just to give us...
Yeah, the particular...
Vice President Jackson?
Yeah, I'm not sure which...
Thank you. Look, I'm looking at the picture. It looks like it's coming out just to the left of the entranceway to the sports village. 1395.
Exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, great. That answers my questions. Any additional questions for Mr. Gavin at this time? Thank
No.
you. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition?
President Cooper, excuse me, there is somebody that's on the meeting.
Oh, okay. Someone to
For
speak?
the third public hearing.
Okay, that's not for this one.
No.
Okay, great, thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone neither for nor against? Seeing none, Vice President Jackson, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not, President Cooper.
Thank you, that public hearing is closed.
Okay. The next public hearing is regarding the request from National Grid and Verizon to install a new Joe pole on Peckham Street to install 3-phase primary side tap for future solar farm at 179 Peckham.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor?
So Al Galvin, design engineer, National Grid.
Thank you. And again, if you could just give an overview of the project, that would be, for the council and the public, that would be great.
Sure. It's a similar situation. We're installing an intermediate pole for a 3-phase side tap off the current street line to bring primary across to a new solar farm. It's apparently being constructed where an old landfill used to be or is currently.
Great, thank you. Any additional questions or comments for Mr. Gavin? Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Thank you.
Mr. Cooper, David Dumont, 179 Peckham Street. Not so much opposition, just some clarification, Mr. Gavin. I received a note...
Just a minute, Mr. Dumont. I guess I'm confused. The solar farm says it's going at 179 Peckham, and I think you just told me your address is 179 Peckham, so I got a problem.
Yeah, so I spoke to DPW after speaking with Ms. Stewart about why my property on the left-hand side of the road has an odd number. And the DPW came back and said, it's always been that way. So regardless of that, you have a landfill across the street, my uncle, not trying to stop the solar array, just trying to get some clarification on this pole.
Okay. So, but go ahead and ask your questions, and then I'll
Please.
So it's clarification that I don't think we can give you right now, other than calling your uncle and asking him in terms of what the solar farm is. I don't have any information on the solar
Clarification is
farm.
really from National Grid is what I'm looking for.
Okay, so
The only thing I could say on the matter, judging by the pictures I see, looking at Google, is the span on the street of the current poles that are out there are probably a couple hundred feet apart. So where they want to tap off the lines out there to feed the solar farm, they need more stability, so they need to add another pole, due to the weight of the cables and coming off of them with new cables. feeding into the solar field, you're going to have a lot more equipment involved, so you have a lot more, you have to add stability, and it's probably just a locational thing where it's a straight shot this way, where right now you can't really feed it great from the poles that are out there without adding anchors and things like that.
And that's fine. Why is it that on July 8th, can he see anything that I have in my hands? I have a hazard tree mitigation program pink sheet signed by Nate Nikapor, an arborist. If you knew you were going to be putting a pole in, why are we saying the trees are, in danger of falling apart, falling down? These trees are perfectly fine. I'm not trying to be hard here. But Mr. Gavin, National Grid could have been transparent with me and simply said, we need to take these trees down because we're putting a pole up. Again, I don't want to waste everyone's time here. I'm just looking for clarification, and so far I haven't gotten
Point of
it.
order.
Yes, Council Colas.
I believe the guests should be addressing the council and not.
That is correct.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
I'm sorry. I'm naive to this.
That's okay. But I think the process, right? I think, first of all, let me tell you that I think you need to contact National Grid, number one. And I am not going to close, I'm not comfortable closing this public hearing, knowing that there's going to be a solar farm at 179 Peckham Street, and then your address is 179 Peckham Street, and your house is on fire, and you call over there for help down Union Street a little further, and 179 Peckham Street, and they pull into the solar farm and your house is on fire. They'll probably see smoke, so fire was probably a bad example, but you got crushing substernal chest pain, and you just took 2 nitroglycerin and you're sitting on the kitchen floor, and they're up at the solar farm looking for you. That's a problem for me. So I'm not doing anything with this until we get clarification on the house.
So President Cooper, first of all, it's 6 acres of nothing.
I understand.
Just for clarification.
Your 179, your 179 is vacant.
Is vacant, it's trees, according to DPW. Fine gentleman who answered me, Mr. Ruggiero. He says, for time and eternity, we've always known that property to be 179. But I think we all grew up knowing the odd numbers are on the right, even numbers are on the left. And they said, in order to change this number, it's a process.
But there's no structure there.
Correct. No usable structure.
At 179. Is there a building on 179?
There's fallen down chicken coops.
Okay, so there's a building there, so that's why it's known as 179. So we have to figure that problem out. Or I can't, in good conscience, go forward with a solar farm at 179 and someday somebody builds something other than a dilapidated chicken coop there if they can.
Well, I'm looking to do something with the property, which will tie into the solar array from my uncle, yes. But in the interim, I was just trying to go on record and find out how come they couldn't just be transparent. I will contact National Grid about that. Small potatoes right here. I do have an issue with my property that I inherited 7 years ago when my father passed away, 179. Didn't think anything of it, but suddenly said, wait a minute, all the odd numbers are on the landfill side of the road. So, anyway, I said my piece.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. President?
Yes, and I think Council Conti also had a question. So go ahead, Council.
Okay.
Go ahead, Vic.
I'll be after you, Kate. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Hi, Mr. Dumont. I'm Kate Jackson.
Hello.
This is so confusing. So we're going to leave this public hearing open, and I will leave your information with Virginia, please, in the office, and I will get in touch with you because I will get you a contact at National Grid, unless Mr. Gavin can give us a good one, so that you can get all your answers.
Thank you.
Okay?
Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Council Conti.
Councilor Jackson, that's exactly what I wanted to hear because you are the best at that. Kudos to you. Mr. President, I just wanted to say that, thank you for keeping it open because the whole purpose of a public hearing is for an airing, and obviously there's more to be aired here, so I appreciate keeping open, and that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any additional questions for Mr. Dumont at this time? And Mr. Dumont, I think Virginia has your contact info, but just go around and sneak in and make sure she's got a good number to get you at so that Council Jackson can follow up.
Appreciate it. Folks, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Anyone else here to speak in opposition? Anyone here to speak neither for nor against? Great. That public hearing is open and will be continued to October 5th.
Okay.
October 5th.
October 5th.
Okay, so the next public hearing is regarding the request from National Grid and Verizon to install a new 45-foot pole between P6369 and P6370 on Richardson Avenue to be used to supply future solar farm with three-phase overhead electrical service.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor?
Al Galvin, design engineer, National Grid Electric.
Hello. If you could just give the council an overview of the project, and we'll see if there's anyone else here to speak on this matter.
Sure. Again, it's a requirement to install a pole in order to bring the primary over to this new solar field location and maintain the stability of the line that's currently on the street, and add stability to deal with the added weight and tension that the new lines will cause. But it's a locational thing, judging by the current poles that are out there. We needed to install an intermediate pole to tap off of that will then feed the solar.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gavin? Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? I think there's somebody on.
There is.
Hey, hello. My name is Trevor Wright. I live at 113 Richardson Avenue. I think I'm parcel P6369. And I guess my question is the placement of the pole, and will there be tree removal in placement of?
If there are trees within the radius of the pole where they could hang over it at some point, possibly become an issue, branches breaking and falling on the lines, they would have to remove those, cut back those branches.
Sure, and again, Vice President Jackson can get us that answer and let us know back to the council what the outcome of that question is, as she's already got planned discussion with National Grid on the previous application, so she can get that answer for us, Mr. Wright, and she could share that publicly when she has her committee meeting.
Thank you. Yeah, just the placement of the pole and the tree removal, that would be really great.
Okay, you got it.
Thank you much.
You've got, great. Any additional comments or questions for Mr. Wright? Thank you for, go ahead, Vice President Jackson.
I just wanted, Mr. Gavin, could you,
Yes.
would you have someone that I could contact that you would like to give me a name of and a number and possibly?
I don't have the liaison's name. Let me see.
You can.
You could probably contact, I believe it's Wendy Paluch, someone's been emailing back and forth as far as the documents. She could put you in line with who you need to talk to regarding that.
I've got her email and phone number, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Vice President Jackson, did you hear that
Yes.
Clerk Withers has the number and an email for her?
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So I am going to actually keep that public hearing open as well till 10:05. So
Great.
that public hearing, again, remains open and continued till October 5th. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't do neither for nor against, did I? Is there anyone else, any other participants on the Zoom for this public hearing?
Oh.
Great. Is that, okay. So we will move on to The mayor's communication and other communications.
Right. September 7th, 2021, dear municipal councilors, I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Public Works, Michael Tyler, regarding the need for funds to pay a fiscal year 21 invoice to Home Depot. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $20.27 from account Public Works Supplies Equipment to account Public Works previous year's bills, copies in your packets.
Public Works Committee, please.
I hereby request your honorable body to schedule a public hearing pursuant to Section 16-2.2 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro as amended to lay out Pheasant Hill Road as a public way.
The Zoning Land Use Committee, please. I'm going to do a single roll call vote for all of the public hearings required for this as soon as we get through them, so we'll just consolidate it all into one.
Okay. Is there a
vote.
date for that, President Cooper?
It's going to be October 5th.
October 5th. Okay.
If we vote in the affirmative.
Okay. I hereby request your honorable body to schedule a public hearing pursuant to Section 16-2.2 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro as amended to lay out Colonial Way as a public way.
Zoning and Land Use Committee, please.
Respectfully submit a communication from Legal Secretary Allison Wood regarding items that the Water Department would like to declare as surplus. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to declare the following as surplus and available for disposition. Copies in your packets. There are 200 water meters, and they are in used condition.
Public Works Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Antonio Ribello regarding the donation of a picture of the Attleboro Fire Department from 1921 to the Treasurer's Office. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept this generous donation to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
I respectfully submit for confirmation by your honorable body the appointment of Maureen Lynch, 63 Holden Street, to fill an unexpired term on the Cultural Council, term to expire February 2023. Copies in your packets.
Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee, please.
I respectfully submit for confirmation by your honorable body the appointment of Ann Kingman, 6 Musket Road, to fill an unexpired term on the Cultural Council, term to expire February 2024. Copies in your packets.
Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee.
I respectfully submit for confirmation by your honorable body the appointment of Karen Hammond, 76 Ashton Court, to fill an unexpired term on the Cultural Council, term to expire February 2022. Copies in your packets.
Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee, please.
Respectfully submit a communication from Chief of Police Kyle P. Hegney regarding the need to pay previous year invoices associated with an increase in cost associated with police recruit psychological examinations. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $220 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account police previous year's bill. Upon approval, the available balance in Reserve Fund for transfer to include any pending requests will be $362,991.89. Copies in your packets.
Public Safety and Emergency Management Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Laura Gignac regarding the donation of card-making supplies and scrapbooking material with an approximate value of $200 to the Council on Aging. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept this generous donation to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
City Property Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Parks and Forestry, Derek Corsi, regarding the need to pay a fiscal year 21 invoice to Culls Office Supply in the amount of $52.50. A vote authorizing payment is needed to satisfy this debt. There is no transfer of funds needed to pay these bills as there is sufficient funding in Fund 2607. Copies in your packets.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
I hereby request your honorable body to schedule a public hearing pursuant to Section 16-2.2 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro as amended to lay out Chickadee Way as a public way.
Zoning and Land Use Committee, please.
I respectfully, I hereby request your honorable body to schedule a public hearing pursuant to Section 16-2.2 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro as amended to lay out Sparrow Way as a public way.
Zoning and Land Use Committee, please.
I hereby request your honorable body to include a public hearing pursuant to Section 16-2.2 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro as amended to lay out Cardinal Way as a public way.
Zoning and Land Use Committee, please.
I hereby request your honorable body to schedule a public hearing pursuant to Section 16-2.2 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro as amended to lay out Ledgewood Circle as a public way.
Zoning and Land Use Committee, please.
I hereby request your honorable body to schedule a public hearing pursuant to Section 16-2.2 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro as amended to lay out Preservation Way as a public way.
Zoning and Land Use Committee, please. And Mr. Kobus, would you like to have a public hearing on 10-5 for Pheasant Hill Road, Colonial Way, Chickadee Way, Sparrow Way, Cardinal Way, Ledgewood Circle, Preservation Way on 10-5?
Yep.
I would, yes.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Roll call vote is required, and I believe with Council Holmes?
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds? Ms. Reynolds?
She's trying to say yes.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Kobus?
Yes.
Mr. DeLucio?
Yes.
Vice President Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. We will have a public hearing for all those street acceptance on 10-5.
Okay. I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Budget and Administration, Jeremy Stoll, regarding the need for funds for the design and project management of de-linking the public safety networks. It has been a priority of the police and fire chiefs, the MIS department, my office, and a number of municipal councils to separate the respective public safety networks from the City Hall network. In doing so, we would keep optional relinking available so that City Hall network could serve as a redundancy for the public safety departments should the need arise. This would allow the police and fire to continue operations as normal when City Hall network is down for maintenance or something more nefarious. This is an important endeavor for the city. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $18,150 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to Citywide Transfer to Capital Fund, and to further transfer $18,500 from Citywide Transfer to Capital Fund to Fund 3561-499000 Public Safety Network of the financing source for costs associated with the design and project management of the public safety network. Upon approval, the available balance for transfer to include any pending requests will be $344,841.89. Copies in your packets.
Thank you. Capital Improvements and City Development Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Attleboro Public Schools Director of Finance, Mark Furtado, regarding the following fiscal year 21 fiscal obligations that were not received in time to be processed in the normal fiscal year 21 business cycle.
You can waive the reading of those,
Okay.
and those will all go to Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Okey-doke. I respectfully submit for confirmation by your honorable body the appointment of Robert Capola, 300 Bishop Street, to fill the unexpired term on the Traffic Study Commission, term to expire February 2024. Copies in your packets.
Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee, please.
Okay. I hereby request your honorable body to approve a land donation from Mr. and Mrs. King as shown on PCLA on a plan drawn by E. Otis Dyer, RPLS, dated August 27th, 2021, entitled Plan of the Widening of a Portion of May Street and Newport Ave in Attleboro, Massachusetts, prepared for the City of Attleboro for the construction of sidewalks in May Street. The assessed value of this parcel is $868. Copies in your packets.
I'm also going to waive the reading of the formal
Okey-doke.
vote. And that matter will also be referred to Zoning and Land Use Committee.
I respectfully submit a communication from Chief of Police Kyle P. Hegney regarding the need for funds associated with the police recruit medical and psychological examinations. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to transfer $4,660.75 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account Police Medical Consultation. Upon approval, the available balance to include any pending requests will be $340,181.17. Copies in your packets.
Public Safety Emergency Management Committee, please.
Okay. I respectfully submit a communication from Library Director Amy Rillinger regarding the need for funds to replace the library servers. The current library servers are outdated and struggling to serve their purpose. MIS is having an increasingly difficult time updating software and is concerned that the servers will fail, especially with the creation of the new technology room. MIS and the library's technology team recommend the replacement of the 13 machines that are currently on the 4th floor with 2 stackable servers that will be located in the new rack in the 2nd floor technology room. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $33,706 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account Library New Computer Equipment. This request includes a 10% contingency. Upon approval, the available balance in Reserve Fund for transfer to include any pending requests will be $306,475.17. Copies in your packets.
City Property No, capital improvements and city development.
Okay. I respectfully submit a communication from Attleboro Public Works Director Mark Furtado regarding the following fiscal year 21 fiscal obligations that were not received in time to be processed in the normal fiscal year business cycle.
And again, we'll waive the reading of those that total $1,222.68, and that'll go to Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
Okay. Of the roughly 17,600 households in the city, approximately 14,400 are participants in the city's solid waste and recycling program. The fiscal year 2022 fee of $261.06 per household, along with special revenues derived from the program, such as additional bag fees, supports all activity associated with the program. This includes regular collection and disposal of rubbish and recycling, as well as full-time compensation of the program personnel and partial compensation for health department staff that provide support to the program. The administration is looking to add a position of solid waste manager to the program to handle the increased volume and complexity of solid waste collection and removal in the city. Roughly 30 years ago, the program was moved from DPW into the health department under the purview of the health agent. This additional position would not change that, keeping the broad health department enforcement provisions within the department and in reporting structure, but rather add another level of professionalism and customer service for those participating in the program. The operation of the program, administration of the waste management contract, regular enforcement, managing the recycling center and related laborers, coordinating yearly special events, and adhering to relevant ordinances and statutes has outpaced the size of the staff as well as the roles and responsibilities of the current Grade 5 solid waste coordinator. This request for a Grade 9 solid waste manager would augment the staffing level within the program while removing a portion of the deputy health agent's compensation that is currently supported by the ratepayer. While this position would focus on a number of areas, one immediate charge of the incumbent will be on modernizing and perhaps monetizing recycling center and compost operations. The city has made no major strides in services offered, and that portion of the program would benefit from increased expert attention. A Grade 9 Step 4 position, assuming that we bring in an employee that has prior relevant experience that would necessitate a step above entry level, fully loaded with the most expensive benefit options, would be a yearly cost of $106,416.26. During the development of the fiscal 2022 budget, we had added an additional $100,000 to the compensation for the new solid waste manager, which will be borne by the general fund and by the taxpayer, since fiscal year 2022 solid waste rate was created without including this compensation. I am proposing for fiscal year 2023 that the share of the deputy health agent supported by the fee be reduced from the current 50% down to 20%. With the addition of a solid waste manager, the solid waste coordinator will be freed up to do some of the work that the deputy health agent is currently performing. Looking only at these two changes, addition of a solid waste manager and a reduction in the proportion of the deputy health agent, and assuming a 2% COLA, a 3% step increase and a 2% increase in benefit costs for both positions, the net increase in salary supported by the rate in fiscal year 2023 would be approximately $82,000 compared to if the position was not added. If we additionally assume an additional 150 households from fiscal year 2022 to fiscal 2023, there would be an increase in the rate associated with this change of $5.65. To be clear, this does not include any other changes to the program or rates, some of which are bound by contract. The demands of the health department outside of solid waste have also increased, leaving less time for department staff to assist with the program. The city has grown larger, the program has become more complex, the expectations of ratepayers have increased, and the department needs seasoned leadership to help us navigate this environment. Therefore, I hereby request that your honorable body add a Grade 9 position of solid waste manager to the exempt classification plan. A request to transfer funding for the position will be sent at a later date. Copies in your packets.
Thank you. Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee, please.
Which was that?
Personnel.
Oh, personnel. Yeah. Okay. As a city, we need to continue to grow our business base as it is good for job development, revenues to the city, and opportunities for residents. Developing the city's economic base and condition is critical to the mission we all share to have a healthy and vibrant downtown. The success of hiring an economic development director in 2018 is evident through the increased number of businesses open in the city center, the redevelopment of the city center, and the approximately $2 million added to the city in economic development. However, considering that Attleboro did not have an economic development director for over a decade, this deficit has caused a large backlog of needed work to be done to support the job of the economic development director. The duties of the economic development director are many, and has been a concern for some time that things that need to be done are not being done due to a lack of staff to assist the economic development director. Therefore, I am proposing that we create a new position titled Community Engagement Manager. This person will report to the economic development director. This person who holds the position will be responsible for improving and maintaining communications with businesses and residents in the city of Attleboro. This position will help make businesses aware of funding opportunities, training sessions, and resources. This position will also help coordinate and promote business and community events to the greater population of Attleboro, such as festivals, restaurant weeks, shop local campaigns, and other activities. The cities and its businesses need more active, centralizing support and sharing information across multiple channels, including traditional media and social media. This requires someone skilled in a variety of areas, including marketing, promotions, formal communications, and press releases, and technological skills ranging from website design to social media engagement to CRM tools. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body at a grade 3 position of Community Engagement Manager to the exempt classification plan. A request to transfer funding for this position will be sent at a later date. Copies in your packets.
Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services.
Sincerely, Paul Haru, Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to the other communications.
We have several here tonight. We have an application for keeping a stand in a public place from Moran's Inc. to have 3 tables on the front sidewalk of Moran's, May to October, 7 days a week.
License Committee, please. That one doesn't need the public hearing. It's the next one that does.
What's that?
That first one doesn't need a public hearing,
Okay.
but the second one does.
An application to waive Section 11-15.1 to serve alcoholic beverages on city property for Moran's Inc., May to October, 7 days a week. Public hearing needed.
Thank you. License Committee, please. And Councilor Dolan, would you like to have a public hearing on that matter on September 28th?
Yes, please.
Thank you. That public hearing, oh no, I'm sorry. We've got a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yeah.
Mr. Waterman? Mr. Waterman?
Here. Yes.
Vice President Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Mr. Kovas?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yeah.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion
Okay, we
passes.
received a letter from Adam Strominski supporting the idea of sidewalks on Reed Street. We received a letter from Joshua DeFranzo, General Manager for City Spirits 2 on Pleasant Street, with an update on the progress of collecting nips and working with Keep Attleboro Beautiful. That's an FYI. We also received a letter from Linda D'Agostino stating that she and her husband are against the proposed wetland protection amendments to increase the area adjacent to the wetlands.
Ordinance, Elections and Legislative Matters Committee, please.
And we received an application to waive Section 11-15.1 to serve alcoholic beverages on city property from Friends of Cape and Park Zoo regarding a function on October 2nd, 2021. Public hearing called for 9/14/21.
Correct. We already did that one.
Yep.
Yep.
We received a communication from Mike Davis of Thayer Farm Road supporting the wetland protection amendments.
Ordinance, Elections, Legislative Matters Committee, please.
And we received a communication from Greg Dorrance of Oak Hill Ave stating the wetlands ordinance amendments will cause hardship on many residents.
Again, Ordinances, Elections, and Legislative Matters Committee.
That is all.
Thank you. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to go into Committee of the Whole.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Need a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yeah.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Kovas?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Vice President Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. We are now in Committee of the Whole. Is there anyone here on the Zoom that would like to address the council on any matter of city business at this time?
There is none.
Thank you. Seeing none and hearing none, I would entertain a motion to arise.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. A roll call vote will begin with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Kovas?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Vice President Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Are there any, are there any committees reporting this evening? I don't believe there is. So seeing none, I am going to call for committee meetings for all your committees next week at the appropriate time, and move right on to, there is no old business, there is no new business, and at this time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, a roll call vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSimone?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Vice President Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Delizio?
Yes.
Mr. Cobus?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yeah.
Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
President Cooper?
Yes.
11 yeas, no nays.
Thank you. Motion passes. We are adjourned at 8:50. Thank you.
Great, thank
everyone.
you.
Have a great
Good night.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Night.
Have a good night.
Huh?